John, let me start with Dusty Baker goes out and takes out his pitcher. Can you plead your case that you want to stay into the game?
You allowing the guy to have a feel for the game in that point to get himself out of that game. Either take him out much earlier, but once it got bases loaded, that's a very difficult spot to put anybody in. I don't care if a reliever's never given up a run. You come in with the bases loaded, no room for error. It was almost as if they anticipated that Pena was going to bunt, then they were going to bring in Alvarado. But every move has worked so far for Philly. It's hard to kind of criticize some of the moves, but last night was an impossible situation for one of their best pitchers.
Was that a no-hitter?
It was. It wasn't the no-hitter that, Don Drysdale pitched by any means, and his was a perfect game. But, anytime you do something that is very difficult, whether it's 5 pitchers or 2 pitchers, it's a pretty incredible feat at this time of the year. Nobody had shut down the Philadelphia lineup. Nobody. No starting pitcher, no collective staff. And this was much needed for Houston. If they were going to win the series, they had to kind of punch the boys that were making a mockery of all the starting pitching at home.
You mentioned, I think, Don Larson through the
Don Larson.
Yeah,
sorry about that. That's right.
Through the perfect game. But you start to look at this. Is this just a one-off? Kyle Schwarber said, "Hey, I don't care if we got no hit. We lost a game." But how big of a loss is this, or how big of a win is this for the Astros?
I think it's a bigger win for the Astros. They have more depth, and they're more confident in their ability to pitch because they've done that all year. For the Phillies, just another loss. That's exactly what I would say. Whether it's sometimes better to lose this way than to lose by 1 run every time you get in a situation where you could answer a question like, what if this would have happened? So I think for really the Phillies, no big deal. They've got a tough task today. And if they get back on their offensive game plan and take care of mistakes, they'll be up 3-2 going in. But they're in a tough one when it comes to Justin Verlander being able to make adjustments from game to game.
But how does he make that adjustment? He didn't look good at all. He's never won a World Series game. What are the adjustments? What's different for Justin Verlander?
The biggest thing is I think he'll realize mechanically what he has to do after those first 9 he got out. He was on point. He was exposing the weaknesses of the Philly offense. And then whatever the delay or whatever happened, he got out of his mechanics, in my opinion, lost the command of his fastball. We saw last night when a man has his fastball going like Javier did, it's very difficult to hit. And Justin has the same capability with that 4-seam fastball to expose the weaknesses of any hitter. He did it perfectly for 9 innings. Sometimes you can be too passionate, want it too much. I'm not saying that he fell into that category, but when you have a 5-0 lead, that's a great feeling to have. And the next thing you know, you're in a tight game and you're answering the same question. So I'm sure he'll be paying attention to those details because Justin Verlander is one of the best.